Hey guys, welcome to the GM's table. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody to like, share, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. If you want to help out the channel more than that, check out in the doobly-doo below. It scrolls in here. We have our patrons over here. Check out the Patreon, because there you're going to get access to videos early. As soon as I get them upload on YouTube, patrons get them. Get access to PDFs for playtest materials, access to any of the books we put out. It's the pre-published, pre-final proof versions of them, but you get all of them instead. Get access to GM notes, all that good stuff, blah blah blah. You guys get what Patreon is. There's the link. Anyways, moving on. I want to talk about something, and yes, it has to do a bit with Dark Places and Demigorgons. If you're tired of hearing about that game, I'm sorry. I discovered it. I kind of love it, and I've realized why I love it. And this is a broader discussion, but I realized OSR games might be perfect for horror. Now, I'm not talking about psychological horror, Lovecraftian horror, slipping into madness. That kind of stuff, there's great games for it. And a lot of other games have added mechanics to try and make them great games for it. No, I'm talking about just surviving. The Dark Places and Demigorgons is actually part of a series called Survive This. There's also a zombies version. That kind of horror. The horror of like slasher flicks, zombie flicks. The gore, you don't know when you're gonna die. Life is constantly on the line. You're just trying to survive from something. It works. Because there's a couple things people have issues with in OSR that work perfect in horror. And I gotta give it to Bloat Games for spotting this, because it's kind of genius. The two main things of OSR is that low levels, you can die instantly. You can die on a freaking dime. A dagger, just shoot. One dagger, you could be dead. That's great for horror. The other is because of how skill checks and stuff work in those games. Success is actually very, very hard to get by the standard rules. They've tweaked stuff, and we're going to get into that for their version. But getting successes in what are kind of like skill checks is very, very difficult. That actually works well for horror. It ratchets up the tension. And as I've run a few sessions of Dark Places where I'm like, I realized my first session, no one got attacked by the monster. I've talked about this in the recap. The monster never actually got to attack in any round because they were constant, like I was giving up warning signals, because it's horror. You got to build up the tension of like, all right, and they were setting up traps and doing things to like shock it and scare it away. Running, throwing things behind them to try and hurt it, and basically just, giant monster, it's run or die. And they were constantly running. In their last stand, they actually got really lucky. And in that one, where I thought the monster had a really good shot of, doing some damage, they still got lucky and took it out. But they never felt like superheroes. In a game where they did all the damage, they made all the attacks. The monster never actually touched them. They were constantly terrified. Because even though Survive This, I would look at it as it starts you at level 2. Because you get 2d6 hit points. So you get the hit points of what would be a second level character in a lot of games. Even then though, that's only 2d6 hit points. They knew one attack from this thing would likely kill them. If it touches them, they die. So, if it touches them, yeah, it's horrible, someone dies. But knowing even one wrong move will kill you means even if they make all the right moves, they're scared the whole time. It's amazing. It's so useful. It's so good for horror. I'm not gonna lie. Again, this is for like slasher flick type of horror. We've only done the first part of another adventure, which will be released by the time this comes out. It's Dream Warriors, because in there they have a monster that's... Well, it's a ghost, but it's kind of like Freddy Krueger. It's in dreams and attacks them and all that. Some people have been hit, and this time they didn't die because someone made it to level 3, so he actually has decent health. Someone else actually rolled really well for their health. So we have a couple people at like 10 health. They can survive a hit. They've each been hit once. But even then, they're like, well, a crit will take me out. A good damage roll will take me out. We're worried about this. This was actually a more combat-y adventure because it's dreams and I can just throw things like this person's afraid of bears because I have a nice fear chart from the supplement book, so I can just throw a bear in their dream. Just this is a more action-packed one. And even with more action-packed, they're hanging on. They're like, we're gonna die. We're really just terrified of it. The low hit points helps. Now, I will say, if you take standard, like, again, we'll say the Mulve box, but if you take the standard one, don't change anything, you're like, well, but then they have knights and armor and all that stuff, because that's actually probably the biggest one, is in Survive This, you don't really have much armor, but the classes give you armor bonuses. They actually made up for this. So being in armor isn't a huge thing. It means you're a little less likely to be hit, but trust me, as someone who's run a good bit of basic fantasy, I've had people that are like, I finally got a full suit of plate armor. I am ready. I'm like level 2 or 3. A wolf ran up crit and he got ripped apart. OSR is about quick deaths at low levels. Horror is about the fear of quick deaths. It just meshes. Now with the skills, I will say in Dark Places they have skill points stuff. I think I'd just keep it as roll under and use like an advantage disadvantage thing for difficulty. I'm already toying with some of that for my own, for Fantastic Legends, because that's getting some reworks coming. But that's also supposed to be a higher action, like Saturday morning cartoon thing. But I've noticed that's a big deal. Now, granted, once you're up to like 20th level, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about low level play. And how XP works in those OSR games usually takes a while to get to level 2 or to level 3. If anything, the Survive This series is actually very, very kind, because they know it's already a rough go. You rest all day. Oh, excuse me, my voice went weird. You get a full night's rest, you fully heal. That's friendly. Leveling, again, if you actually have kind of a combat heavy session, you can level in one session from 1 to 2. It'll take 2 to 3 to get to level 3, and so on. But then your first few levels actually pretty quick. If you were to take just pure basic fantasy, just right here, if you even went, magic's not allowed. That simple. Just, you can't take a caster. You can't take a magic user. You could even probably allow the cleric and just go, you can't take a caster. Go, it's cleric, but you don't get turn undead. We'll figure something else out for you. So at level 2, you can heal type thing. That will give you some fantasy elements. Heck, again, even with the caster, you get 1 spell a day. I hope it's a good one. Once per day, you can hopefully get everybody out of a jam. You can run a fantasy horror game with basic fantasy real easy at level 1. Heck, at level 2, 3, 4, I'd say up to level 5, OSR games run really well. Heck, I'm going to cover it, but Dungeon Crawl Classics, their whole gimmick is the meat grinder level 0. That's a real horror show. But even then, low levels in Dungeon Crawl Classics, you can easily do as horror. And actually, I really love their magic system there, where you get to keep doing it as long as you do it, but they have these pages. Each spell's a full page, and it's a table, depending on how well you roll, does different things with the magic. A little tweaking to that to make it even weirder, which you might not even need to. Dungeon Crawl Classics has really weird magic. And if you go, only one person can take magic, and they're going to be weird. It's a medieval horror show. It really is. You can make things terrifying in OSR games. I know I'm just kind of looping, but I want to hammer that in. If you have any OSR game and you want to run a horror game, you have everything you need. If you want to run like a slasher game, if you want to run kind of a blood and guts, just we need to survive. The fear is of death, not existential horror. Again, you can do existential horror, but there's games that really have systems for that because it's a much more complex and nuanced thing. It's become a lot of fun. It's to the point that I'm actually going to start running one-shots of Dark Places and Demigorgons soon on Mondays, which, if they go well, I might do them as an audio thing, or I'll do recaps. I'm not sure. That's starting next week. We're going to see how it goes, because we're going to have some cycling people. But I'm realizing this might be my go-to for that kind of horror. I still love Savage Worlds. Don't get me wrong. Savage Worlds is still probably my favorite system. But I don't run a lot of horror. When I do horror in Savage Worlds, it's like ETU. It's action horror. And yeah, there's a lot of combat and a lot of action in my Dark Places game, but it's like fight for your life. ETU's more like, oh, we're fighting the forces of darkness. Oh, there's some horror elements, but we also get a joke in, and things get lighter a lot more often. You want dark dread. And again, you can still have comedy. Comedy is very important. If we ever get into the writing videos, I'll discuss that stuff, and levity and breaking tension and all that good stuff. But if you want that truly dark horror, if you want stuff that's like an 80s slasher flick, if you want stuff that feels like body horror or something that really just you're afraid for your life constantly, you want that feeling that any mistake will kill you, that's already in OSR. We don't have to mod anything. And that's kind of my big thing is if you don't have to modify it, it's already perfect. Anyways, I've rambled enough. Like I said, this is more just kind of wanting to get the ideas out there and maybe take some games you have and look at them in a different light. Hope this was helpful for some of you guys. I'll catch you later. Bye. If you like that video, check out another video over here. Whatever it is, it's probably pretty good. Don't forget to like, share so other people can find the channel, and subscribe right up there. YouTube now won't let me put a link to the Patreon, but there is a link down in the description below. So if you want to help support the channel, check that out, and I will catch you guys next time.